Everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind Podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Thursday. It's November 9th. It is 2023. We have NFL Week 10 main slate to break down and talk about here on today's podcast. Joined as always for the NFL podcast by Keith Eister. Keith, I like this NFL slate. We were talking pre-show last week. The NFL slate was like iffy. It ended up being a losing week for me, so maybe I should have just trusted my gut and not played as much, but NASCAR held me up, so I'm not too concerned about it. But week 10 slate, there's some really good games on this slate. I have like 3 or 4 games that I really like on a 10-game slate.
Yeah, this one looks like a dream compared to what we were dealing with last week. There were so many totals under 40 last week, and there were extra games. It was a bad week for me too. It was a really hard week. I think if you made money last week, congratulations, because it was definitely a difficult week. We loved the Houston Tampa Bay game, and that absolutely smashed, but didn't quite have enough Stroud and didn't find the pairing with Dalton Schultz and Tank Dell together, which just kind of hurt me. And then way too much Alvin Kamara. Loved the spot for him. I got on Bijan Robinson once Drake London was ruled out. That did not work out at all. Thanks, Arthur Smith. Like, just how do you spend a high first-round draft pick on a running back and then you barely use him? It is just the most tilting thing. Jonathan Taylor had a decent game. Wasn't really efficient, but he did find the end zone. But I don't know. Got a couple of things right, a lot wrong. Not a good week for me either. So moving on to week 10, this is a better slate for sure.
So Keith, one of my main tournament teams last week, Stroud, White, Collins, Dell, Kmet. You'd be like, oh my gosh, that team is like, heck yeah. Alvin Kamara, Chris Godwin, Terry McLaurin. Like, are you kidding me? Like, any production? Any production there, man. Like, and like McLaurin wasn't terrible. Don't get me wrong. But like Chris Godwin, 3.6 fantasy points. Alvin Kamara, 11 fantasy points. So like that team, like it still made money. It was just like that team had the potential to like take down tournaments, and it was like one of my main teams that was like on like 3-entry max type of contest, and it was like, oh man, if it just would have, and the correlation with like Godwin is just like, man, and listen, last week on the podcast, I sat here and I said that I was going to be underweight on the Cowboys game. It did what it did. And like I already said that like if that game went off, I was probably going to have a bad week. It was just so much more than that. It was Singletary. It was Thielen. Like, I mean, like there's just so much to last week that didn't go right. I had a couple things right. We were really high on White last week. He had a really big game in that Houston game. We were on that game in general. That game went off. But Evans and Godwin were like 2 of my main pieces on like all of my Stroud Mayfield stacks. And we know what happened there. So we move on. We got a great slate, a lot of games to talk about. So let's jump in, have some fun. What's up, YouTube? What's up, Easy? He said he had a 4X week. Heck yeah. Great job, nice. Dude.
Congrats,
he said he went Dak, CD, White, Josh Jacobs. Josh Jacobs had a really good game.
Yep.
So we're going to talk about. I don't think he's on the slate, but there's a couple running backs that have been like on my no playlist that I'm on this week. So that'll be fun.
Oh no.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I hope you're not going to say, but I have a feeling you're going to say them.
Well, we're going to start with 2 of them in the same game right off the bat here. We got Green Bay Packers at Pittsburgh Steelers, 38.5 total in this game. Pittsburgh a 3-point favorite. We'll start here with the Green Bay side. They basically told us that they were going to unleash Aaron Jones last week, and they surely did. 20 rushing attempts, 6 targets out of the backfield. He had a rushing touchdown, 19 fantasy points. He's still only 6,500. He's where I want to start because, honestly, the rest of the offense has just been atrocious. Jordan Love hasn't been playing great. We want Watson to be a thing. He can't stay on the field. He can't stay healthy. We know, like, the talent is there for under 5K. Pittsburgh's defense is a team that does a great job of pressuring the quarterback, which worries me a little bit with Jordan Love. I think this is a spot if they're going to give Aaron Jones 20 carries. And if they get behind, he's going to get some passing work as well. I think Aaron Jones is my favorite player from the Packers this week.
I'm with you. I can get behind this one for sure. I tried it out a couple of times while he tried to come back too early from this hamstring injury. They finally let him get some rest and get it right. It feels like 20 carries was awesome to see. Pittsburgh has not been great against the run. So that is exactly how I want to attack this team. Jones has a nice role out of the backfield as well. 6 targets last week, 5 the week before. So game script proof. His quarterback stinks. So I don't think I could target the passing game here. Aaron Jones is a play for Green Bay for me. I'm not interested in a ton else. I think you can take some shots on Musgrave. He has been dealing with an injury as well, but he's been out there 4 targets last week for 51 yards and a touchdown. That's solid production for 3,700. But I don't think I'm not trusting Jordan Love enough to go after these receivers at this point.
I think it's the right call. Jordan Love it's been a tough scene.
Yep.
I think Pittsburgh's defense is in play. We'll start with that as far as the Steelers are concerned. I think they're going to get after the young quarterback here. If Aaron Jones can't get going, I think the Pittsburgh defense, they could give up a couple touchdowns and still have a solid game here. So I like the Steelers defense. Keith, as much as it pains me to say it, I kind of like Najee Harris this week. He's at least 14 rushing attempts in 4 of his last 5 games. He's getting the targets out of the backfield still. And the Pittsburgh offense looks competent. And he's 4,900. Like, this is the same. He's like in the price range that we paid for Devin Singletary last week. Now, Warren's still going to get work, and we know that. But I feel like Pittsburgh's super easy for me this week. I want some Najee Harris, and I want Deontay Johnson because the targets are there. 23 targets in 2 games since returning. I guess he returned week 7 and played like he had kind of a pitch count, but he still had 6 targets in that game. So 29 targets in the 3 games since returning. Pickens has just kind of disappeared since, Johnson's gotten healthy. I think that you're taking shots on Johnson, you're taking shots on Harris here.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like, the Najee Harris play is not comfortable. He just has not been efficient since his rookie season, but the volume is still there. And now that the price is way down here at 4,900, like, I've done much worse things than I've clicked much worse players at 4,900 than Najee Harris. So, like, way too high of a draft pick. It was a dumb pick by Pittsburgh. He did not deserve to be selected that high, but 4,900 matchup against Green Bay doesn't scare me. The role is outstanding. I don't love it. It's not comfortable, but I definitely get it. I'll probably have some Najee as well. And then the role for Deontay Johnson is really hard to ignore. He's still way too cheap. I don't love the game overall, but I don't mind taking an Aaron Jones, Deontay Johnson stack. I think is my favorite way to play this game.
Game stinks. Let's just be honest. This game stinks, but I think that there's still production here, and like the pricing of this game. Like, we have some games that we're going to pay up for some players. Like, we're going to talk about the Chargers game. Obviously, that game is just absolutely phenomenal. And like the Houston-Cincinnati game is phenomenal. That game's not cheap. Yep. So I think like we're looking for some like cheaper pieces that you don't even necessarily have to like run back on each side. So I think like just getting exposure to Harris, getting exposure to Johnson, getting exposure to Aaron Jones is just like where you want to be. Like, if you're playing 150, I think I'd even throw in like a little bit of Pickens in there. But I think that Johnson has a little bit more upside right now. Pickens is a really talented wide receiver, though. So this is just a game. I don't have nothing to do with the quarterbacks whatsoever. I think this is just a game you're wanting. I mean, like, Pittsburgh is allowing the 7th most passing yards and the 4th most rushing yards per game, but they're getting after the quarterback getting sacked. So, like, there's production available for Green Bay as well. So, yeah, I think there's going to be points scored. You just gotta play pieces of this game. I don't think this is a game stack. We move on. We got Cleveland at Baltimore, my least favorite game of the weekend. It should be everybody's least favorite game. It's 38.5. Baltimore's a 6-point favorite. Potential contrarian game if you think that Watson can keep up with Lamar Jackson. But we have the 2 best defenses in the league. DVOA, Cleveland 1, Baltimore 2. When we start looking at the stats, Cleveland is number 1 in pass DVOA, they're number 1 in run DVOA, and they're number 1 in overall DVOA. This defense is legit. Baltimore is 2nd in pass and 3rd in run. These are 2 of the best defenses in the league. Is there anything that you like here for Cleveland?
I will say Amari Cooper has been absolutely balling. I think I can play a little bit there. Like, I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball on Baltimore at all. Cooper just 139 yards and a touchdown last week, 11 targets the week before, down week against Indy, but 108 yards against San Francisco. So like the game against Seattle, he put up 89 yards. The game against San Francisco put up 108 yards. Like, those are two pretty solid defenses. He's won in really tough matchups before. Just like the role is good enough for Cooper. The price tag at 6,300 for an alpha receiver, I can get on board with that. I don't need to go much deeper than that. And Njoku would probably be my next look, but I'm definitely not stacking Watson. It's a Cooper one-off is the main thing here.
Watch the Njoku news too. He's dealing with a knee. I know he's been dealing with like an ankle. Now he's dealing with a knee. So watch that news. If he were to sit here, I don't think I would play like Brian or Akins or anybody. I think I would just bump up Cooper, maybe even bump up a little Elijah Moore, but not going crazy here. The Baltimore side, I don't love Lamar this week. I'd probably get a little bit of exposure to Lamar, just thinking in the mindset of like tough defense, lanes are not going to be open, and we're going to see Lamar use his feet to win this game, type of game where he gets like 2 rushing touchdowns, runs for like 80 yards, doesn't do like much through the air, but I think that's where you get the upside for Lamar. So like, I almost like playing him naked. I think you can always take shots on him with Andrews, but like this defense is no joke.
Yeah, I like the naked Lamar call because I was not enthused about these wide receivers. I've done the Zay Flowers thing way too much here recently. Hard to trust him. The price is probably a bit too high for this matchup against Cleveland. And I feel the same about Andrews. Like, Andrews is one of the most talented tight ends in the league, but this matchup, he's fully priced. We're not getting a discount at all. So to pay up for an expensive Lamar and an expensive Andrews doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I do like Cooper on the other side. So if I'm correlating, I think Lamar with Amari Cooper is the way that I'm going to play this. Lamar's rushing upside is you can't. Concern is the touchdown equity. We've seen Gus Edwards do it to us back-to-back weeks, where he's getting in the end zone multiple times. I don't think that's going away, but that doesn't mean that Lamar still can't run a couple in. It's definitely a detriment to his touchdown upside, but I agree he should run a ton. Cleveland plays a ton of man defense, which is often makes it easier for their quarterback to take off and run. So awesome Lamar Jackson rushing spot. I'm not on nothing else from Baltimore.
And we have a question in chat. Gus Bus. I mean, the guy had 5 carries last week. He had a 42-yard run, and he scored 2 touchdowns. And you just that type, like, that production is just not there. His price, like when he was under 5K in that Detroit game a couple weeks ago, that is when it was time to like jump on Gus Edwards. He's 6,100 in one of the toughest spots in the NFL. I'm going to pass on Gus Edwards again. Like, this is a spot. Aaron Jones is in this price range. I'd rather go down. Bijan Robinson is in this price range. As much as he's burned us this year, his spot is way better. So those are guys that I would prefer over Edwards. And thoughts on Jerome Ford in chat? Like, if we really look at this guy's game log, like, he had a 69-yard touchdown against the Colts where he broke a big run. But outside of that, like, he's barely broken into double digits. Hunt is getting too much. Like, they're splitting carries and rushing attempts. I just think this is a spot where I don't have a ton of interest overall in the running backs in this game, unless your running back is Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I get the Jerome Ford thing more than the Gus Edwards thing. Like, it's just a really difficult matchup. We saw Keaton Mitchell, shout out to him, have a monster game. I don't know what this running back situation looks like going forward, but I think they saw enough from Keaton Mitchell where he's going to be involved here. Gus Edwards price is up, like you mentioned, so I'm not getting there. Ford, I think, at 5,300 has the ability to catch some passes out of the backfield. Maybe that's how you get to him, but I agree. Like, I'm probably just passing because there are better game environments to target.
Yeah, I mean, this game has the lowest total on the weekend. Well, this game, and I guess it got up to 38.5. It was at 37.5. We move on. This is a phenomenal game. We move on to a phenomenal game. Houston at Cincinnati. I think this is going to be a lot of people's favorite game in this 1 o'clock time slot. 47 total. Cincinnati 6.5-point favorite. We'll start here with CJ Stroud. Just continues to silence the haters. Again, another just phenomenal passing performance from CJ Stroud. 470 yards. We don't expect that every week, but we know that like the Cincinnati defense, definitely a defense that is not great. I mean, overall, they are beatable by the run and the pass. We should mention Dameon Pierce did not practice with the ankle on Wednesday. Let's talk Houston. I mean, they're coming off of a huge week. Everyone watched that. What are your thoughts, like your initial thoughts here on the Texans? Oh, did I lose Keith? I can hear his
back now. Sorry, I'm having some internet issues here. It appears.
Am I still with okay. You? Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Yeah, my internet keeps going in there. All right. Houston side. Yeah, I mean, what a performance by CJ Stroud. We've seen it from him a couple of times this season. Just a really talented quarterback. The wide receivers have been priced up a little bit now, so it's like you have to pay for it. But I do like the spot here against Cincinnati. I agree. This is a very attractive game. Dalton Schultz, I think, is my first look as a stacking partner. 4,900. The role for him has been outstanding. Double-digit targets last week, over 100 yards. I like that a lot. 4,900 is an uncomfortable price, but I'm on board. Tank Dell would be my other look at 5,500. Just has been super talented. 5,500 feels uncomfortable, but when you look at the role, like it's really about what it should be. I can definitely get on board with some Tank Dell still at that price tag. Not touching the running back situation. Can't get fooled by Devin Singletary again. Didn't play much in tournaments, but had him in cash games. Did absolutely nothing as was very predictable. But very excited about this Houston offense. I think they have a ton of talent and just the makings of a good young offense here.
Yeah, so if Robert Woods doesn't return, I could see Noah Brown at 3,700 getting some ownership. He 11 targets over the 2 games without Robert Woods, so I mean that's a really positive sign. He finally had that touchdown. He had 150 yards, so like I could see him getting some ownership. I looked earlier today and we didn't have it up. I'm currently pulling up lineup HQ to see if I can see if initial projected ownership is up. Of course, it defaults to the Thursday night game. That game's atrociously bad. So Noah Brown currently is projecting for 2%. It looks like I think that will end up closer to like the 10% range, just because like he is really cheap on DraftKings and on FanDuel. So think he gets some ownership. I mean, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I'm going with the passing game again. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. I think Cincinnati, Joe Burrow looks 100%, and when he's 100%, this offense just rolls. We've seen it now. Tough matchups, and he just crushes. So I'm going back to the Joe Burrow train. 6,800. My favorite quarterback play on DraftKings this week. Like, he's the guy for me. On FanDuel, I have him ranked second. I really like this spot for him just overall. I just love his price on DK. Like, we're starting to see his price increase, but like still not over 7K and just continues to have big games. So really like Joe Burrow, really like T. Higgins this week. He's 6,500. They finally got him involved. And Jamar Chase, I watched a lot of the game. I'm sure a lot of people did that Buffalo Cincinnati game. Jamar Chase's back injury did not look pleasant. He looked like he was in pain. He was on the sideline with the heating pad. I think this is a week you take shots on T. Higgins at 6,500. I think T. Higgins is going to have a big game this week. Keith's internet is like, I do not want you to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals offense, but you're back now. I can hear you again.
I'm extremely interested in the Cincinnati.
Oh. That Arizona internet, it's like I'm not having this internet, not having this show tonight. So it's been a while since Keith had internet issues. So we'll give him a second here. I know in chat, Trenton Irwin question, is he worth a flyer? I think Irwin's only in play if Jamar Chase gets ruled out. I don't think you are going to Irwin in this spot if Chase ends up playing. So I think Irwin only in play if Chase gets ruled out. I think Chase plays and tries to play through the back. He, played through the back pain, just kind of didn't have a great game, but he was out there doing his thing as much as he possibly could. So, yeah, very interested in Cincinnati. I don't necessarily hate this spot for Joe Mixon. I think that Joe Mixon is in play. He's someone that can put up 15-plus fantasy points here. He's not like a ceiling play for me unless you're not on Joe Burrow. But I think that overall, value-wise, this is a spot you can put Joe Mixon in your player pool because, realistically, he's not overly expensive at 6,200. So if Keith comes back, we'll get his thoughts on Cincinnati because this game is phenomenal. But we're going to continue to move on here with Keith. His internet banged up, and I'm seeing if he shot me a message, but he didn't. So, all right, moving on. We got Tennessee at Tampa Bay. What a game here. 38.5 total. Tampa Bay, a 1.5 point favorite in this one. Yeah, just a game that is tough to love, but there are pieces of this game that I really like overall. So starting with the Tennessee Titans side of this game, Tampa Bay is a pass funnel, and they have been for years. So I don't necessarily trust Will Levis, but I love the fact that Will Levis is just selling out on DeAndre Hopkins. 17 targets over the last 2 games with Levis. One of those games was Levis and, the mixed situation at quarterback where DeAndre Hopkins had 3 touchdowns. He had a phenomenal game. 11 targets last week in his first actual real start. So love this spot for DeAndre Hopkins this week. $6K for someone that could get double-digit targets. So like this spot a lot for him. And then Treylon Burks is in concussion protocol. So if he were to sit here, I think you could take a shot on Westbrook at 3,400. So I think overall, Tennessee pass offense is where I want to go. Are we good, Keith? Are we back?
I think we're back, but man, promises it was struggling there real hard. So I just had to give up on it and go reset it. Hopefully we're back now.
Nah, you're good. So let's get through. I'm in the middle of talking Tennessee, Tampa, and then I'll go back and let you give your thoughts on Cincinnati. But just said that really like Hopkins for Tennessee against the pass funnel Tampa defense. And if Burks ends up sitting with the concussion, I think Westbrook at 3,400 is worth a tournament shot or 2. Thoughts on the Tennessee Titans here?
Yeah, nailed my exact thoughts. DeAndre Hopkins, clearly the alpha in this offense. They fed him last week. Will Levis looks like a competent quarterback, so definitely think that you can grab some Hopkins exposure here. They're going to have a difficult time running on this Tampa Bay defense. They've been a pass funnel all year long, so I think the best way for Tennessee to move the ball is to target DeAndre Hopkins. They've gotten almost nothing out of the tight end position. Agree with the Westbrook-Akine call. He's cheap, and he's stepped up a little bit when Burks was out a couple weeks ago. So can definitely get on board with that. I want to play Levis, honestly, just because he's cheap, and I think they're going to throw it a ton in this spot. My only concern is if they get up and play from ahead, they're probably going to take their foot off the gas and just hand it to Derrick Henry a bunch, even though he might be inefficient in this game. And there's just not really a second stacking partner that I love. I mentioned they didn't get much production out of the tight end position all year. If Burks is out, I guess I have mild interest in a Levis, Hopkins, Westbrook stack, but to be determined if I actually end up with some lineups that look like that.
Yeah, Westbrook is so cheap that that triple stack is not a crazy idea. And they're going to need some production out of a second pass catcher. So I think there's a lot of good tight end plays, and I don't know if Okongwu has the ceiling of some of the other tight end plays on the slate. Tight end's a position that I actually really like the idea of spending up for on the slate, which is very against what I typically do. Tampa Bay side of this game, I think we go back to the well on White. I think he's still too cheap at 5,800. Like, his role is just so good. He doesn't come off the field. So, like, if they get behind, he's going to get a ton of catches out of the backfield. I mean, the rushing spot is a terrible spot. Tennessee, another pass funnel defense. So I'm going back to Godwin and Evans here. I know they burned me last week and Baker burned me. I don't know if I necessarily will take shots on Baker. I love the idea of stacking Baker with Evans and Godwin just because Baker is so cheap and it's a triple stack that has like 3 touchdown upside for the wide receivers. I'm going back to the well in the Tampa pass game here. They burned me last week in a fantastic spot, but I don't see the reason not to go back to him here.
Yeah, I'm definitely with you. The way that you attack this Tennessee defense is through the air, and that includes Rachaad White too. Like, he has an awesome pass catching role, and I think he's game script proof. So he's still cheap enough where I want exposure there. I don't love the price on Evans and Godwin is the only thing, but I think it's the way that they win. I think I include Otten to save some money rather than going Baker, Evans, and Godwin. Like, that just, I'm spending a little bit too much money on or too much salary on a game that I'm not sure has potential just to go absolutely nuts. So I like saving some money with Otten as the second stacking partner there, or you can do White too. But I probably don't play both of the wide receivers together, but agree, like, either one of them is fine. We know that they have ceiling just from their past performances.
I don't expect that Cade Otton game again. For what it's worth, Houston's been terrible against tight ends this year. It was good to see though, like, Cade Otton have some upside. It finally happened, which is good. Before we move on to the next game, let's go back to that Cincinnati spot against Houston. Like I said, I got to talk about it a little bit. I absolutely love the spot. So just give me your thoughts here on the Cincinnati offense.
Yeah, Joe Burrow looks like he is in an incredible spot here. The wide receiver injury is a little bit concerning to me. Right when my internet died, I heard you talking about Chase's back injury. So that is a little bit of a concern. Higgins, saving the money down to Higgins is not the worst thing in the world. I'm totally fine using him as the stacking partner with Burrow here. I think you can play some Irv Smith at a cheap price as well. Want a little bit more information on Chase. It looked like that was a pretty rough injury, but I mean, if he's playing, I wouldn't be afraid to roster him by any means. I hope one of the running backs that you were not referring to at the very beginning of the show is Joe Mixon, because I cannot do Joe Mixon anymore. I don't know if you talked about him or not.
I did. I talked about him just because, like, he's 6,200 on DK, and I could see him, like I said, I could see him getting like 15 plus fantasy points. I don't think Joe Mixon wins you a tournament, right, but I think, like, he is a guy that, like, if he scores that, like, touchdown, he gets you to 20, and then, like, maybe he serviceable enough at 6,200.
Yeah, it's the ceiling that's the biggest concern. The role is really good, don't get me wrong, but he's just not as efficient as he was a couple of years ago. He needs 2 touchdowns for him to be useful in tournaments is really what you're looking at here. Just that's maybe you can play that on FanDuel. I haven't checked his FanDuel price, but I'm not chasing touchdowns on DraftKings. I think I can find a much better or as good of a role with more explosive upside other spots in my running back portfolio. So I'll leave Mixon on the sidelines on this one.
Yeah, and again, like, he wasn't like a highlighted play for me. My favorites here are Joe Burrow and T. Higgins. I love T. Higgins this week. I think this is a big week for him, and I like Tyler Boyd as well. I think the back injury for Chase is more than what we. I mean, we saw it. Like, it looked like he was in a lot of pain. So he played through it, but he's 8,600. Like, you need Jamar Chase 100% playing all the snaps, not coming off the field, getting the 15 target games to pay off 8,600, because we have, like, St. Brown and Keenan Allen in the same game that just looks to be like an absolute shootout slugfest type of game. So it's tough for me to get to Chase this week, and I will on some teams unless he is really limited all week. Because they do this decoy thing. They do it so much. That's my biggest concern here. But with Burrow being my favorite quarterback play this week, I know I'm going to get plenty of exposure to everybody in the passing game here. All right, Saints and Vikings. 41 total here in New Orleans, a 2.5 point favorite. We'll start with the Saints side of this game. I mean, honestly, this is a game that's kind of mediocre for me. I feel like there's pieces in this game. I could see this game being a close game. I don't think it's going to be like this really high scoring game. Starting with the Saints side, Alvin Kamara did not have the game we were hoping for last week, but I feel like, I don't know, it was a weird game. I don't mind going back to Alvin Kamara here, and like maybe we have to start respecting Chicago's run defense a little bit more. Their run defense is really like on the rise. They've done a really good job of running backs. So I think this is a spot you could go back to Alvin Kamara. I'm just going to keep playing Chris Olave until he's like over 7K. I think he's just too cheap. Didn't necessarily have a big game, and he really hasn't had like a big game, but he just is a guy that can get you 3-4 times the price. So I like Olave. My favorite play this week from the Saints in large field tournaments is Taysom Hill. This is a tight end play that is just not a tight end. Like we are literally getting a running back at a tight end running like a position at 5,100. He's running the ball. He's throwing the ball. He's doing everything. And like this is now 3 straight games he's been over 16 fantasy points, and he's 5,100.
Yeah, I mean that's the Alvin Kamara problem is Taysom Hill. Like he's their goal line back. Like even in the red zone, like they just put Taysom Hill out there. They direct snap it to him, and he runs the quarterback power. They line him up at tight end, and he's catching touchdown passes now as well. The role for Taysom Hill is incredible. Like you look at this price tag at 5,100, and you're like, "There's no way." But then you start looking at what all the areas that he's producing. He legitimately has the upside to throw for a touchdown, catch a touchdown, and run for a touchdown. Like that would not surprise anyone if he did that in a single game. It's a great matchup here against a Minnesota defense that I'm not afraid of whatsoever in the dome. I like the Taysom Hill call. I don't love the price tag until you start looking at this production. I think I'm off of Kamara. Like the rollout of the backfield is incredible. I just don't expect Minnesota really to be able to keep up all that much. I know Dobbs played really well in emergency relief last week, and I expect him to be okay in this offense eventually, but he still doesn't have the full playbook open to him, I would imagine. So I feel like New Orleans should play with a lead in this spot. And Kamara is just like, they're not going to use him as a grinder. It doesn't appear. Olave, I'm completely with you on. I'm just going to keep waiting for this big breakout game because it's coming. We know he has that upside. Always fine taking shots on Shaheed. Still 4,300. You need the home run ball, but he's a guy that can provide it often. And then Thomas, I still feel like the upside is just a little bit too limited. Should catch a bunch of balls, but probably stays under 100 yards. Probably doesn't catch a touchdown. I'd much rather play Shaheed for the upside.
Very inconsistent offense. What they're doing just in general, very inconsistent. Like Mike Thomas, what do you have? 1 target last week. So
yeah, that was weird. But
it's just to me, like the safest play for the Saints is Taysom Hill, and I know like it just doesn't sound right, but like he's a guy that I think you could play in like 2 tight end sets because like. He's a running back play that you're playing at tight end position at 5,100. He's just not getting the catches out of the backfield. But I mean, he got some catches last week, I guess, too. Like it's just, I don't know. Like Taysom Hill is just so involved in everything the Saints are doing, and it's working. So like, why would they stop doing it? I mean, this is a team that they keep winning. So let's talk Minnesota. Golf clap, Josh Dobbs, phenomenal, just phenomenal. Like the step into that situation and come back and win that game, just phenomenal. So I mean, got to give credit where credit's due. I don't necessarily hate Dobbs in this spot. I don't love it, but I do think like with the playbook not being fully open, we could see Dobbs run for like 50 plus yards here. Now, does he score a touchdown or 2? It's tough to say, but like. The pieces around him are just so good. We saw how much he locked into like McBride and Brown. Like I think TJ Hawkinson is just going to get a ton of targets again this week at 5K. So really like him. Young quarterbacks that look for tight ends, man. And then if Jefferson doesn't come back this week, which he practiced limited on Wednesday, it doesn't sound like he'll play this week. I think you could keep taking shots on Jordan Addison. I think that Dobbs is a good enough passer to like. How many times did Hollywood Brown hit this year? So like, I think that is something we should mention. Akers IR. Hope for a speedy recovery for him. This guy just can't not stay healthy.
Yeah, second Achilles. That's tough for Akers, man.
Yeah. Madison's gonna get a majority of the work out of the backfield. I just don't love this spot.
No, really tough matchup for Madison. Hasn't been efficient even before Akers' arrival, so probably has the backfield to himself. Maybe they mix in a guy like Ty Chandler a little bit more. I think I'd rather go that route for like some pass catching upside, but I can't do Madison anymore, especially not in a tough matchup. Don't think I'm getting to Dobbs, although the rushing upside that he showed, because basically he didn't know the playbook, was incredible. Maybe I get on that by Sunday because he is 5,500. I'm not looking to attack the Saints defense necessarily. But I do want to play some Saints pieces. So I like the Addison run back, assuming that Jefferson doesn't make it back this week. And I don't think he will. So Addison, and love the TJ Hawkinson call. Probably the best role in the NFL at the tight end position at this point. Like Kelsey's had a down season. Andrews has been awesome again, but Hawkinson's target share has just been incredible. 12 again last week. So 5K seems like a very fair price for this spot, even with the new quarterback.
So to just really quickly talk on like Alexander Madison against Ty Chandler, the only reason I don't know if they'll get a ton of Ty Chandler this week is because he grades out as a terrible pass blocker, and you got a quarterback that doesn't know the offense very well. I think Madison plays 80% of the snaps. He's the much better pass blocker. I think they're going to need him back there in this game with Dobbs at quarterback. So if you just want to play him on pure snaps, I get it. I hate the spot. And I don't know how many routes he runs because, again, I think they're going to want extra protection for Dobbs, who he's going to need a little bit more time to go through progressions. So that's just, I mean, Dobbs, I don't know if he's necessarily playable. In chat, KJ Osborne in concussion protocol, if he sits, you could bump up Brandon Powell at 3,200. But again, TJ Hawkinson's the main play for me here. An elite tight end play.
Yep.
All right. San Francisco at Jacksonville. 45.5 is what this game was at. Let's see. Did it move? It did not. San Francisco, a 3-point favorite. I think this game has all the potential to shoot out. So I'm really interested to hear your thoughts on this one. This is a game that I have circled. We'll start with the 49ers. Deebo Samuel, full practice, good to go. He's going to be back. So now it's the coin flip between Deebo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey. Brock Purdy, this is a sneaky good spot for him. I don't know how many people will be on Brock Purdy this week. His price has come up a little bit. Let's talk San Francisco here. What are your thoughts on the 49ers?
Yeah, I like this game a good amount. Two good teams. San Francisco needs a win in a bad way. They've fallen off quite a bit. They get Deebo Samuel back, which I think is a big difference maker. I feel like the field might wait and see it out of Deebo, so that's where I'm leaning on this in the Purdy stuff. I do agree. Like Purdy's price has come up, but he's still only 5,700. I think he's very playable in this spot against a Jacksonville pass defense that hasn't been anything to be concerned about. You can always play Ayuk. You can always play Kittle. Kittle falls to third when everybody's healthy. Like we've seen him just kind of disappear and be more of a blocker in that situation. So I'd lean to the wide receivers first. And then the big question is, do you want to spend the money to get up to McCaffrey? I think I do this week. 9,200 is a big ask, but the role for McCaffrey is as good as it gets. The touchdown equity is as good as it gets in the entire league. This is I'm looking at it as kind of a must-win game for San Francisco. They've dropped 3 in a row. They need to get back on track here. I think they lean heavily on McCaffrey. Deebo being back, I wouldn't even hate using McCaffrey, Deebo as a stack with Purdy. I think you can do that, but very high on the San Francisco offense. Really think they need to get back on track this week.
Yeah, an offense that had scored, over 30 points, actual points in 5 straight to start the season, and hasn't scored more than 17 in the last 3 games. Deebo being back is going to open up things. I think this offense gets rolling this week. I really think that This is a game we want to have circled for so many different reasons, but I'm with you. As much as I like St. Brown and Keenan Allen, I think there's a lot of value at wide receiver this week, just overall. So I could see Christian McCaffrey just going bonkers in this game. So really like him. I'm with you on Kittle. Like, Kittle's the second highest priced tight end on the slate. Laporta and Hawkinson, Taysom Hill, Evan Ingram on the other side of this game. Both the Atlanta tight ends, like, they're all cheaper than Kittle. I think Kittle needs to have like a monster game, and I don't see it happening with Debo coming back. I think this is Christian McCaffrey's game. Jags side, Christian Kirk 6K, Calvin Ridley 5,600. I feel like Calvin Ridley is finally in that price range where it's just like you don't trust the role right now, but you have to play him at this price. So I really like Calvin Ridley. I don't really like him. I like the price a lot. I think ETN is just his volume in the passing game and out of the backfield is just too high not to have some exposure to. He has these games where it looks like he's not going to do anything and he gets there. So I like the Jags. I like Lawrence. I like this game. I like this game overall.
Yeah, it's wide receivers for me first. ETN's role has been incredible. There's no denying that. I just don't love the spot here against San Francisco, but if he was a little cheaper, I'd be more interested. But because the wide receivers are cheap, I think that's the way I'm going to be leaning on this. Ridley's price at 5,600. I mean, that's jumping off the page to me as well. I know it's been a little bit of a rough go for him the last few weeks, but they just had the bye. Maybe they take some time to get back on the same page. Still don't know if Zay Jones is going to be back. I like Ridley and Kirk are my first two looks for this game. I don't mind Evan Ingram as well. I don't know, 4,500. Like he just hasn't had that monster game. His role's incredible. He just hasn't been finding the end zone enough. They've been handing it to ETN a bunch down there, which is part of what we're talking about with the awesome ETN role. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I want to double stack Lawrence against this Niners team, but I'm definitely playing some wide receivers. I probably end up with at least a couple of Lawrence teams.
Yeah, I think like don't overlook how good Evan Ingram has been this season, kind of thing. Like he is having a phenomenal season. He's yet to score a touchdown. He has at least 7 targets in every game except for week 1. And in week 1, he had 5 catches for 49. So it's not like he would have busted in that game either. So like I feel like this is a spot we don't overlook just how good the role has been for Evan Ingram. Like if we look at tight ends and we look through all the tight ends, he has a 21.5% target share. It's the 4th highest in the NFL this season, above Sam Laporta, above George Kittle, Dallas Goedert type of players. So 4,500 is a really nice value. Again, if you're like triple stacking Jacksonville, you could throw Evan Ingram in there. I think he's a run back option. You could go Ingram, Ridley on McCaffrey teams and just, forego the quarterback situation and, offset McCaffrey's price a little bit here. So I think there's a lot of ways to build for this game. It's just getting it right. And I hate saying that, but it's true. This is definitely a game where, like, if you play 20 entry max and MME 150 type builds, like getting a good portion of your builds on this team is where I would definitely suggest, because there's just so many ways it could play out. All right. Hey, right back to back. Let's go. Detroit at LA taking on the Chargers. Another phenomenal game here. 48.5 total. Detroit, a 3-point favorite. Jared Goff. I love this spot for Jared Goff. I know he's not at home and, all that at home stuff. I get it. Chargers stink. Their defense stinks. They allow 313 passing yards per game. It's the highest in the NFL. Jared Goff, St. Brown, Josh Reynolds for cheap, Sam Laporta. The running back situation looks like it's going to be very murky this week with David Montgomery coming back. I know Gibbs is coming off of a monster game, but like Gibbs at 7K with David Montgomery there, I think is too expensive. And I think David Montgomery with Jamar Gibbs having such a big game is probably too expensive. So I really like the passing attack here for Detroit today or this week.
Yeah, I definitely have more exposure to the passing attack. St. Brown is the clear number one option here. Expensive, but I think the upside is there in this spot. Double-digit targets not out of the question. 2 touchdowns not out of the question. Sam Laporta is expensive as well, but he's had a very nice role. 5,700 can certainly get behind that. I like the Josh Reynolds call as well, 3,800. Jameson Williams is coming, but he's still not on the field a ton. They're going to give him his 2 to 3 targets that they scheme up for him every game, but I'm not sure that his role is what we need it to be to target him. If he catches a long touchdown, he pays it off at 3,400 probably, but Reynolds is certainly the guy with the better role. The running back situation, I do have concerns that Jahmyr Gibbs has earned a bigger role, but I also know that how Dan Campbell has operated his backfields in the past, and it has me wanting to take some shots on a low-owned David Montgomery. I feel like Montgomery is still just going to get the lion's share of the rush here. Gibbs is going to be involved, but I feel like he's going to be more of the change of pace back, and we're going to see the defined roles again. If Montgomery stays at the ownership he's currently projected at, which was something like 5%, I'm really interested in playing him. I'm not scared of this Chargers defense at all. I think the Lions can win this game, which is important because David Montgomery would be game script proof or would be game script sensitive in this type of role. Like if the Lions are playing from behind, it's going to be Gibbs out there on the field catching the passes. So you need a positive game script for the Lions here, but 6,900 for David Montgomery. We saw him just blow that price tag away a couple of times with his touchdown upside. We know he's going to have the goal line role. I think he has 18 to 20 carries in the bag here if Detroit can play from ahead. So I do have some David Montgomery interest.
So really quick, I when I was doing my research and like thinking through this game and looking at the stats, and like the big thing to me, they're coming off of a bye. Is this the week like Jameson Williams takes over Josh Reynolds like wide receiver 2 role? It's in the back of my mind. I think you want to get a little exposure to Jameson Williams.
I can get on board with it for large.
This dude is talented. So I think Jameson Williams in large field tournaments, like again, we have some 4K guys, under 4K guys. I think that just have a ton of upside in this spot. So wide receiver wise, Chargers side, I mean, I love this spot for Keenan Allen. I think he's one of the top wide receiver plays on the slate, and just he's incredibly good. We really haven't seen like Keenan Allen week 2, week 3 recently, but like the upside's there. I hate the fact that they like priced him up and he hasn't really had a big game, but I get why they priced him up. But I think he's the top wide receiver play on the slate or close to it, depending on the site you're playing. Quentin Johnston, with Palmer being out, is going to slide right into a wide receiver 2 type of role, and just a game overall that's just too good not to play some Johnston here at 4,100.
I'm completely on board with the Keenan Allen thing. We need to change our thinking about Keenan Allen, and Herbert's injury, I think, has something to do with like the slight downtick in production the last couple of weeks. But Keenan Allen through week 7 was like trending to be a top 3 wide receiver on the season. He's no longer just the slot guy that catches the over the middle stuff. Like they use him down the field. He's scoring touchdowns. I know it's been a couple of down weeks for him, but like the role is still incredible. I think he's going to get targeted down the field again. And I'm all about Keenan Allen. The Johnson thing, I don't know if he's.
You think it's going to be Guyton? It. You think it's going to be Guyton?
I don't know that it's Guyton. It might be Everett. Actually, would be my best guess. Like Johnston, he could certainly catch a pass and take it to the house, but he's not a guy that's going to go out there and earn like 8 targets. I don't think is the only concern. He has big play upside. We know he's an athletic freak, so I certainly understand the play. I'm not trying to talk anybody off of it. I have some reservations on Johnston. If he's going to be popular, I probably end up underweight on him. And then like, I don't think I need to mess with the other stuff like Guyton and Darius Davis. Like I'll find a way to save some money elsewhere. We need to talk about Austin Eckler as well, because if you want to ask who's the actual wide receiver 2, it's Austin Eckler is be my concern. Really weird week for him last week. 7 targets and he only caught 2 of them. Like that was just an anomaly. I expect him to be way more involved in the passing game than we saw in that primetime game against the Jets.
Yeah, Eckler and Christian McCaffrey, they're separating themselves just as like the two clear-cut top running backs on the slate. On DK anyway. Like DK wise, like if you're getting the passing extra point, half a point, I mean, they're just clearly the two best. I should say, like, I like Goff and Herbert in this game. This is another game that I just have circled overall, and I think that it's just a juicy game with so many plays. And the running, like, I mean, both of these run defenses have been really good. They're both kind of like pass funnel offenses, low key. I mean, a lot of passing in this game. I think both these quarterbacks throw for 300 plus yards and have a big game. Atlanta at Arizona. Is this another sneaky good game? I think so. 43 total in this one. Atlanta 1.5 point favorite is what it opened at. Yeah, 43.5. It's 43.5 now. Atlanta minus 1.5. Go to Atlanta first. Drake London trending in the right direction, which I think is fantastic news because I really like him in this spot. Heineke did exactly what we thought he was going to do. He went out and threw the ball 38 times. Huge upgrade to the passing offense here with Heineke over Ritter, in my opinion. Bijan Robinson is 6K against one of the league's worst running back team defenses in the league. It's hard for me to click his name because the production has just been awful. If he doesn't do it this week, I don't think he's going to do it. That's just where I'm at. He's too cheap for me not to have interest at 6K on DraftKings. I think he's 62 or 6,300 he's really cheap on FanDuel too. I'm going to be playing some Bijan this week. I'm going to mix and match the tight ends. I think they're both in play. I love Drake London if he comes back. Let me just hammer that home one more time. If Drake London plays in this game, he's $2,000 too cheap.
Let me start with the Bijan thing.
Let's go, baby.
This one is painful. I got on so much Bijan. Like, I loved Kamara and I loved Jonathan Taylor when we did the podcast last week. By the time Sunday rolled around, Bijan Robinson was my highest on running back. And boy, did that hurt. I thought he had legitimate upside to catch 10 balls in this spot. With no Drake London, I thought Heineke would throw the ball more, which he did. But Arthur Smith just refuses to use Bijan Robinson as more than like a change of pace type running back. And it's ridiculous because he's one of the most talented running backs in the entire league. I don't understand what they're doing. Why'd you spend the pick on him if you're not going to use him? It's frustrating. I love the spot for him. You're probably only going to get 12 carries out of him, 4 or 5 targets. But if he breaks that one big play at 6K, that's all you need. I'm torn on what to do. I'm going to have to see ownership here. I played so much of him last week. I feel like I'm pot committed at this point. I probably just need to keep shoving on Bijan until he finds that explosion game, which this is as good a spot as there is for that explosion game. I'm still torn on where I end up on him. I probably don't go as heavy as I did last week, but I will definitely have some exposure to him. Drake London, I'm on board with as well. Really excited to see what this big, talented wide receiver can do with Heineke at quarterback. Just Heineke's the type of guy who will roll out of the pocket and just heave it up to a guy like this, which is not something that we've seen from Ritter at all. Didn't see it from Mariota last year either. So we've not seen Drake London with a quarterback who's just willing to throw it up for him and let him go get it. And I think he has the skills to do that. So love Drake London. Wanted to play him last week. Unfortunately, wasn't able to play. And that's what got me on so much Bijan. But going right back to Falcons this week, love the spot for them. Kyle Pitts, Jonnu Smith, both have roles. I think they're both super playable at tight end as well.
Yeah, Jonnu, he had the touchdown, but both of them, honestly, had really good games. Like Kyle Pitts, I think he's just going to see so much more production with Heineke at quarterback. But, I mean, touchdowns is where it's going to be at, and they both run the field in the red zone. So they run these two tight end sets. I will notice, I did notice, I was going to say, when I was looking through research here, Hodge was on the field a lot. So if London were to sit here, I think you could take some shots on Hodge at 3,400. His role, and it doesn't seem like it's going away if London sits, or if Holland sits, maybe he still plays. So just kind of watch the wide receiver news in this one because there's some potential value for Atlanta.
I said it last week. I just want to reiterate it in case London misses again. It's not Van Jefferson. That guy stinks. Like, do not play Van Jefferson.
Like, why did we go out and trade for that guy? Hey, just in case you were curious, if you were listening to the Morning Grind NBA podcast, Aaron Gordon has 8 rebounds at halftime.
What a call, Stevie.
Yeah, let's just keep it going, baby. I wrote it up on Scores and Odds today. I said I'm going to do this until the books catch up with Murray out. So, and like he had the tip drill where he had like 3 rebounds in like 10 seconds. Those are the best.
Yeah.
All right, Arizona, Kyler Murray, not on the injury report. The knee is good to go. So Kyler Murray is a guy that we typically like because he offers a little bit of rushing upside. I don't know if he's necessarily going to have rushing upside. I don't know how much they want him to run just in general here. Keith, this guy has burned us so much recently. I'm going to play way too much Hollywood Brown. We know how bad the Atlanta pass defense is. I keep saying it. Joshua Dobbs not knowing an offense beat the pass defense. It's an underrated bad pass defense. Sign me up for Hollywood Brown at 5,200 this week. And again, it pains me, like it hurts, it's heartburn, but I love it.
Yeah, I can get on board with playing a pass catcher here. Are you playing Kyler with him?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I think we need to see it for a week from Kyler. I'm concerned that he's not going to be running much at all, really, coming off of the knee injury. It would make sense for him to just kind of take it easy. They're not going anywhere this year. Just getting back into the rhythm of things. I feel like it's a really conservative game plan from Arizona this week. And that's my only concern. But we have seen volume monsters in Hollywood Brown. And I think Trey McBride is the other guy that we have to talk about. 3,500, very athletic tight end prospect. Now he has talent at the quarterback position. I think McBride could go off. He's cheaper than Hollywood. So that was my first look. But I'm same line of thinking in that one of these receivers – how Kyler might just lock into and pepper them with targets. He's much more talented than what they had at the quarterback position last week. So Atlanta's defense is not great. So also indoors here in Arizona. So I am interested in one of the pass catchers. McBride slightly for me just for the savings, but I certainly understand your angle on Hollywood there.
And McBride maybe burning some people last week after having a monster game week 8. I like the idea of going back to McBride. We talked about it too. We said like he's cheap, but Cleveland's really good defensively.
And his quarterback is not. We kind of knew that or expected that at least. Like nobody expected Clayton Tune to go out there and be able to throw successfully against the Cleveland defense.
No, not at all. All right. Yeah. Overall. I like Hollywood. I like McBride, and like I might actually run a couple Heineke stacks because like you can play Heineke with London and one of the tight ends, and like it makes sense in my head type of stacks. So like that's where I would probably get Hollywood or McBride, and like for me, if I'm using the Atlanta tight ends, I'm probably going to end up with more Hollywood in those types of stacks than I am with McBride.
That's a good call. Yeah.
And like Heineke's not necessarily a guy you have to double stack if London plays, because I think London is going to be the alpha receiver in this passing game. That's what I'm expecting anyway. So, or hoping for. All right, we got Washington at Seattle, 45.5 total in this game. Seattle a 6-point favorite. Let's start here with Washington. Another game that is sneaky good. Like again, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, like I think that there's some really good games. This is a game we're going to want to watch a little bit with Kevin Roth. He said there's some decent chance for rain in this game. It's Seattle. It rains 200 and something days a year in Seattle. So like, whatever. I like Washington. I like the passing attack. I like going back to McLaurin and Dotson here. Like McLaurin big week, it's coming. Like the 2 touchdown big McLaurin week is coming. The targets are really safe right now. I like this spot.
Yeah, I like this spot as well because Washington throws at one of the highest rates in the NFL. Like Seattle should be playing from ahead in this game, and they're just going to let Sam Howell throw it all over the yard again. So volume is insane. I believe in the talent he has at wide receiver. McLaurin is still way too cheap. I know it didn't quite work out last week, but I'm going right back to that. Another 7 targets. If you would have found the end zone, he'd be chalked this week probably. Like the Seattle defense has been better since Woolen has come back, but the volume is really what I'm chasing here. I feel like I know how this game is going to play out, and I know exactly what I want to target, and it's the Washington passing game. Obviously, with the banged up receivers behind McLaurin, we have to wait and see what the injury report looks like. But I have interest in Dotson at 5K if he plays. I have interest in Samuel at 3,900 if he plays. If Samuel is out, I think you can take a look at Jamison Crowder. Another 6 targets last week. Like, he's the guy that steps in for Samuel. So Crowder is on my radar if Samuel were to sit. And then Logan Thomas has a decent role as well. We've talked about a lot of tight ends, so I don't know if I end up actually getting to Logan Thomas, but I'm overall very interested in the passing game here.
Love the Crowder call. He wasn't on my radar at all. I had written down McLaurin and Dotson. Love the Crowder call. Want Samuel to be out. I'm with you. But if Samuel misses again, I don't think he practiced Wednesday, right? Or it was limited. So yeah, toe injuries for wide receivers are the worst. Seattle. So Geno, very, very fairly priced across the industry, like 5,800 on DraftKings. He's my favorite quarterback on FanDuel. Like, his price compared to like other quarterbacks on FanDuel this week, I think this is a 2 to 3 touchdown type of Geno game. He puts up 20 plus fantasy points, has a really solid game, playing a little bit of Lockett and Metcalf. And just that's how I'm approaching this. Like, Walker banged up right now, dealing with a chest injury. I mean, Charbonnet, if Walker doesn't play, would be huge. I think at 4,200, passing role, running role, like, would be phenomenal. So I wouldn't mind getting some exposure to that, but like, it's Geno and the pass catchers for me this week.
Yeah, the running back situation with like Charbonnet is gaining more of a role, and maybe it's because Walker is dealing with injuries. But if Walker were out, like, just lock button Charbonnet. This is not Devin Singletary type of talent. Charbonnet is a legitimately talented running back. 4,200 with the whole backfield would be insane value. So definitely keeping an eye on that Walker situation. I love the Seattle passing game as well. Washington just cannot play defense on outside wide receivers. I think this is a nuclear game for DK Metcalf. He is one of my favorite plays on the entire slate. 6,800 is way too cheap. They were not able to do anything against Baltimore, but he was successful against Cleveland. He was successful against Cincinnati the 2 weeks before that. I think this is a smash spot for DK Metcalf. I have a little interest just because I probably want to double stack if I'm playing Geno. JSN and Lockett are certainly the guys I'd look to, but DK is my favorite play in the game.
Yeah, I like Metcalf a lot. I think this is a game that Metcalf has like one of those monster 25 plus point games. We haven't seen it a lot, but when he does, it's always nice. And again, like, quietly, Washington's allowing 264 passing yards per game. That's the 6th most in the NFL. They rank 29th in DVOA against the pass. Like, they have struggled big time against the pass this year. And they're not going to be getting at the quarterback anytime soon. So I really like Geno in this spot. It just sets up as a really good Geno spot. Hey, we get to finish with the worst game of the weekend. The Giants and the Cowboys. 38.5. The Dallas Cowboys are a 16.5 point home favorite here. DeVito is playing quarterback. The Giants are showing up. The Giants are just banged up. Gosh, man. Saquon, you're going to have to do everything. Running back play, maybe. But, I mean, Dallas defense, Tony Pollard combo looks really juicy this week.
So Barkley might touch the ball 40 times. There's no
he
denying
might have
that. To. We've seen it already this year. The game against the Jets when we saw DeVito that game as well. I think Tyrod was started, but then DeVito came in. He literally touched the ball 40 times. So that could happen again in this spot. No chance I'm touching the passing game. They may not throw it more than 15 times in this game with DeVito at quarterback. Bellinger is still cheap. If you wanted to, I think we can go back to there, but I think there's too much upside at tight end. I don't think he has any upside. Like, you're really hoping what he did last week is about what you're hoping for. If he does that with a touchdown, then maybe you're there, but like 40 yards is probably his ceiling. I mean, maybe 50 or 60 if you're lucky, but like he's not going to break off a big play. The Dallas side, I don't want to play Tony Pollard. So I hope that people
I don't want to either, but I'm going to.
So I don't think that he's like, they're going to be up 40-0 at halftime.
Yeah, but where's the production coming from then? Are you going back to? Are you going back to CD? Do you think the Dallas defense scores 2 touchdowns? Like, where is the production going to come from?
That's a great question. Pollard could run for 2 touchdowns in the first half. They just haven't used him in that role, really. They use Dowdle in the red zone more than they use Pollard in the red zone.
That's fair.
I
think the perfect.
They're not going to use him to grind it out. Like, he's not going to finish the game when they're up 3 scores as the running back on the field. It's going to be Dowdle.
You might be selling me on this, by the way, because like talking it out with you, right? Like just thinking about this in general, like Pollard, if we look back to the Rams, they were winning big in that game, only had 12 touches or 12 carries. And if we go back to week 4 against New England, he had 11 carries in a 38-3 game. He's yet 1 game over 20, and that was against the Giants earlier this year. It was 40-0 that game against the Giants. Week 1, we all remember that game was awful. Yeah, I mean, I could see him going for 20 plus. Maybe it's not even enough at 7,300. Like, maybe I'm with you on this one. It's really hard to look at this spot and say a 16.5 point home favorite against one of the worst defenses in the league, and we shouldn't be playing this guy. But I hear you. I hear what you're saying. CD is so expensive. Gosh, he's so expensive.
I mean, I think you just hope that Dak spreads it around a little bit. They go up 28-0, and they just literally sit on the ball. Maybe Dowdle is. If you want to play Dallas defense, I would almost play Dowdle instead of Pollard. I'm not saying that I'm going to do that for sure. But.
He's like, hold on. Yeah, I guess. Gosh, Dallas defense is a phenomenal pay up if you have the money. Defense is kind of weak this week in general, for what it's worth. I noticed that when I was working on my extra rankings for this week. I think defense overall is somewhat weak. Any other thoughts on this game?
I mean, I agree with you. CD Lamb is too expensive. I think the game gets out of hand, and it's going to be really hard for him to find a ceiling in this spot. Ferguson is priced up a little bit as well. I've played a lot of him the last 2 weeks, and it's worked out. But I don't think I'm interested in this Dallas game because I think the game is going to be so ugly. Like, there's no way that New York is going to be able to keep up in this game. So I'm probably just out on it altogether.
Yeah, I kind of hope that too. I have Pollard written down as like my number 1 play on FanDuel at running back. Maybe he's really cheap over there. They do have like the dynamic pricing. I'm trying to pull it up, but my account's locked out of there. Like, you can't write this stuff. You can't make it up. Like, every time on the show that I try to go on FanDuel to talk about FanDuel pricing, my account is locked. Like, it's so much fun. They make it so hard to log into their site. I want to talk nice about you, FanDuel. They have the single entry series going for RotoGrinders right now, and I always find these series a ton of fun. They have a $100, a $33, and a $5. So, like, all right, I'm logged in. Tony Pollard on FanDuel is 7,800. Saquon's 74. I don't know. FanDuel running back prices is tough this week in general. Christian McCaffrey's 10.5, Eckler's 9K, Kamara's 88, Etienne's 84. Like, I think that's why I had initially had him so high on FanDuel, but I might bump that down. Keep going back to Najee Harris this week. Bijan Robinson. Gosh. Bijan Robinson is 6,600 on FanDuel this week.
I can confidently say I will have more Najee Harris this week than Tony Pollard.
There you go. I'm in. All right, morning grind game. Let's have some fun. Thanks everyone for hanging out. We always appreciate you guys hanging out on YouTube. If you haven't already, subscribe, turn on notifications. That way you can come hang out with us live for the show. You know, it's always fun to interact with chat. Richie says he got Dwaddle and Dallas defense this week. We're not going to talk bad about it. All right, morning grind game. Quarterback, 300 plus passing yards. Who do you got?
Going back to CJ Stroud, I picked him a couple of times in this spot. I think I got him once and I missed him once, but I think Cincinnati plays from ahead here. Houston not afraid to air it out. He looked awesome last week. I like him to do it again this week.
Yeah, I mean, the easy answer for me would be Jared Goff. I love Jared Goff this week, but I'm going to go a little off the board this week and go Geno Smith for 300 plus passing yards. He's only done it twice this year. I think this is an excellent Geno Smith spot. So I'm going to go with him. Low-owned running back for a touchdown. We do have projected ownership here on Wednesday night. Who do you got for a low-owned running back touchdown?
I've got David Montgomery here. I know Jahmyr Gibbs is a super talented running back, and I know that he played awesome in Montgomery's absence, but Dan Campbell likes to have that grinder running back on first and second downs, and Montgomery has filled that role beautifully this season. He's the goal line back as well. If nobody's playing him this week, I'm going to have some.
Montgomery didn't lose his role. He got hurt. That's one thing you got to remember, too. Like, he was playing phenomenal. My low-owned running back right now for a touchdown is Aaron Jones. We currently have him projected for 6%. I really like Aaron Jones this week. Love the matchup for him. Pittsburgh, where they have really struggled, has been against the run. Quarterback, wide receiver stack for a touchdown. Who do you got?
Geno to DK. We talked about it when we were breaking that game down. Washington against outside receivers has been a disaster. DK Metcalf, one of the best in the game. So I think he goes nuclear in this spot.
I'm going to go Sam Howell to McLovin. I think McLaurin is going to have a big week. Wide receiver for 8+ targets.
DeAndre Hopkins against the Tampa Bay pass funnel.
All right, you took my play. Hold on, I got to find one. You did. That's who I had written down. I'm with you. I have a ton of interest in him this week. I really like this spot. Man, if we okay, I'm gonna put Drake London because if he plays, I think he's gonna get the targets. If he doesn't play, give me Higgins for Cincinnati.
Like both of those.
Tight end for a touchdown. Who do you got?
I'll go Dalton Schultz. Awesome game last week. Has had a really solid role here. I'm on Stroud this week, so I'll have some Dalton Schultz with him.
I'm going to go Taysom Hill because it doesn't say it has to be a receiving touchdown. It just says touchdown, and it's a tight end, even though he's a running back. Give me a defense for 10+ points this week.
I like the Steelers a little bit against Green Bay here. Jordan Love just been playing pretty bad. Steelers at home, like the spot for them.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say Baltimore or Dallas because that's not fair, but I am going to say Cleveland. I don't think Cleveland's going to be a popular defense because Baltimore is a really good offense, but they're going to get after Lamar here. So give me the Cleveland Browns, and I like their price. I always try to find cheaper defenses. Against the spread, money line pick. What do you got this week for me?
I think Arizona plays pretty conservative this week. They get Kyler Murray back, so they're certainly better than they were last week, but I like the Falcons money line, only -120, short favorites there. The Falcons are a solid team. As much as Arthur Smith frustrates us with his usage of Bijan Robinson, they have some talent there. So I think they can beat a watered down Cardinals roster.
I like that call. I have no issues with that. I was struggling with this one earlier, but as we got through the podcast, the thing that just kept jumping off the page to me in this one is New Orleans Saints -2.5. So I'm going to go New Orleans -2.5. I'm going to take the points. Usually I like to try to find a money line pick, but I'm going to take the points this week and say New Orleans -2.5. I just worry about Dobbs not knowing the offense well enough.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on that one.
Over-under. What do you got for an over-under this week?
Houston, Cincinnati, over 47. Houston was in that game last week that just almost doubled the total that we were on. I like CJ Stroud is talented. Cincinnati is talented. They've shown us they're still one of the best offenses in the league. Even though Chase is dealing with that injury, they have enough firepower to get it done. I think Houston can keep up a little bit too, so I like it to go over 47.
I like that. I'm going to go under to the Dallas Giants game and say under 38.5 in that game. And like
the Cowboys, Dallas doesn't score 39.
I'm hoping the Cowboys don't score 40. I don't think the Giants are going to score. So give me the under in the Dallas game. I think it's going to be an awful football game. Yeah, that one and the one that I had written down, the Houston game as well. It was at 48 and it's been bet down to 47. So like that one. Player prop. What do you got for me this week on the player prop front?
DeAndre Hopkins over 4.5 receptions. Burke's in concussion protocol again, hasn't been able to stay on the field. Hopkins has been the true alpha there, and I'm believing in the talent of Will Levis. I think he's a competent quarterback. He's better than Ryan Tannehill, so love this spot for Hopkins.
I like that a lot as well. That's what I had written down. I didn't write a second one down. Hold on one second. I'm pulling up. I already put a couple bets in, so looking really quick to see what I put in.
Man, I stole them from you twice.
You did. Yeah, both of mine. So McLaurin is the other one that I had already bet at 4.5 receptions. So I'll go McLaurin over 4.5 receptions here. I think that's the same one that I did last week, but it wasn't on purpose. Pick and play. What do you got for us on the pick 'em streets this week?
So I like Amari Cooper and the role that he has seen. The yardage prop is sitting at 52.5 for receiving yards. He's been way over that a bunch this season. It's not the best matchup in the world by any means against a really good Baltimore defense, but I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball. They're going to have to throw. Watson has just locked into Cooper this season. Cooper has responded with a great year. So give me Amari Cooper more than 52.5 receiving yards.
Trying to find it. Oh, there it is. Okay. Amari Cooper, more than 50. I always plug both of ours in as a 2-pick play. Hold us accountable. Make us some money. Hold us accountable. I'm going to go to Geno Smith. I already talked about how I like him a lot this week. I'm going to go more than 244.5 passing yards for Geno. Love this spot for him. I was looking at some of his lines on some of the sports books, and one of the best places you're going to get it right now is Prize Picks. So I think this is a spot you jump on it right now. So
one of the first things I looked for was Metcalf receiving yards, and it's not up yet, but that would pair beautifully with that as well.
Yeah, I'm quickly trying to pull up the Hard Rock app and see. So they do have passing yards up for Washington. They still don't have it up for Seattle yet. So again, you're playing the juice some places at even a higher line than this. So I like getting this more than 244.5 on Prize Picks. Going to lock in Geno more than 244.5 and Amari more than 52.5 for our 2-pick play here on the Morning Grind this week. Any final thoughts before we get out of here, Keith?
Nice to have a good slate. Felt pretty rough about the slate last week. It was a difficult one. Turned out to not be a good one. Feel pretty good about this one. So hopefully we can get back to making some money here.
All right. I'm going to go sweat some NBA. Need Aaron Gordon to get about 12 more fantasy points to have a really good night in NBA. Didn't look like it was going to be a good night, but there's a lot of duds, I guess, tonight. So that happens on a 14-game slate. So we'll take them. Hit our props for NBA, so always happy when that happens. So hope everyone has a fantastic Thursday, Black Friday, in-season tournament slate, and I think we're really going to like these slates this year. So we'll be back tomorrow, NBA. Have a great day. We'll see you then.